I can't do this. Those were the first words I said on what should have been the best first date of my life. I was sitting across from Evan Brooks at a small Italian restaurant in downtown Denver. Candlelight flickered between us. Soft music played somewhere behind me. He was smiling at me like I was the only woman in the room, and I was already planning my escape. I am 37 years old. I teach third grade. I love coffee too much and I cry at dog commercials. I'm also deaf. Most people notice the last part first. I lost my hearing when I was 16 in a car accident. One day I could hear my mom calling my name from the kitchen. The next day the world was quiet. It took years of therapy, practice, and stubbornness to learn how to speak clearly and read lips well. I wear hearing aids, small ones that hide behind my ears. I learned sign language and rebuilt my life piece by piece, but dating has never been easy. At first men are kind, curious, interested. Then comes the moment when they realize loving me takes work. They have to face me when they speak. They have to repeat things sometimes. Loud restaurants are hard. Phone calls are harder. And little by little I see the change in their eyes. Interest turns into effort. Effort turns into frustration. Frustration turns into goodbye. So when my friend Caroline begged me to go on a blind date with her brother, I almost said no. I had already said no 5 times before, but she kept telling me he was different. He's patient. He's kind. He has 3 little girls and the biggest heart I've ever seen. 3 little girls. That alone should have scared me off. But something in me was tired of being afraid, so I said yes. Now here I was, sitting across from Evan, watching him talk about his daughters with a smile that reached his eyes. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a navy blazer that looked slightly too formal for him. He seemed nervous in a sweet way, like he had not done this in a long time. I talk about them too much, he said, laughing softly. I shook my head. No, I like it. And I did. When he showed me pictures on his phone, something inside my chest felt warm. Sophie, the oldest by 4 minutes, serious and smart. Emma, gentle and always holding some stray animal. Grace, wild and fearless with paint on her cheeks. They're my whole world, he said. The way he said it made me believe him. Dinner was easy at first. He faced me when he spoke. He slowed down without making it obvious. When the waiter came by talking too fast, Evan gently asked him to repeat himself and look at me while he spoke. He did it so naturally, like it was no trouble at all. That was the moment my heart started to panic, because this felt good, too good. I had been here before. That first spark, that easy laughter, that feeling that maybe this time would be different. And every single time I ended up alone. You're quiet, Evan said softly, leaning forward. Everything okay? His eyes were warm, concerned, real, and that scared me more than anything. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. This won't last. He blinked. What won't? This. I waved between us. You're being wonderful right now, but eventually you'll get tired. They always do. His face changed. Not to pity, not to confusion, just steady focus. I'm not them, he said. I laughed, but it sounded broken. They all say that. The restaurant noise felt far away. My chest was tight. I could already see the future in my head. Him repeating himself for the 10th time and sighing. Him embarrassed in front of his friends. Him deciding it was too much. I stood up before I could stop myself. I'm sorry, I said quickly. You're a good man, I can tell, but I can't go through this again. Lena, wait. But I was already walking. I moved between tables, past curious glances, out the front door into the cool night air. My heart was racing. My eyes burned with tears. No one wants to date someone like me. Not really. Outside in the parking lot, I fumbled with my keys. I told myself I was protecting my heart. Better to leave now than to fall apart later. Behind me, the restaurant door opened. For 1 second, I thought it might be Evan. Instead, I heard small footsteps, 3 sets of them. I turned around. 3 little girls in bright dresses were running toward me across the parking lot. They looked exactly like the pictures. Sophie in the middle, serious even while running. Emma slightly behind her, clutching something in her hands. Grace in front, wild curls bouncing, determination written all over her face. They stopped right in front of me, slightly out of breath. For a moment, we just stared at each other. Then Sophie lifted her hands and began to sign. "Please don't leave," she said. "My dad really likes you." My heart stopped. Emma stepped forward and signed too. "We saw you walk out," he looked sad. Grace grabbed my hand boldly. "He doesn't smile like that very often. You made him smile." I could barely breathe. "Your dad sent you." I signed back, my hands trembling. All three of them shook their heads. "No," Sophie signed. "We came because we wanted to." Behind them, I saw Evan step out of the restaurant. He froze when he saw us. And in that quiet parking lot under the streetlights, with three little girls holding my hands like I already belonged to them, something inside me began to crack. I had run from him, but I had no idea what I was about to run into instead. I stood there in the parking lot with three little girls holding onto me like I was something important. Evan walked toward us slowly, like he was afraid one wrong move would make me disappear again. "Girls," he said gently, slightly out of breath. "You're supposed to be inside." Sophie didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed on me. "You left because you're scared," she signed. "Dad gets scared too." Evan's step slowed. Emma nodded. "He almost didn't go on this date." Grace squeezed my fingers tighter. "He practiced what to say in the mirror. It was embarrassing." "Grace," Evan said softly, half warning, half amused, but I wasn't laughing. I was staring at them. "You know sign language?" I asked out loud, even though I could see it clearly. All three girls nodded. "Our mom was deaf," Emma signed carefully. "Dad learned for her." The world tilted. I looked at Evan. He looked back at me, something vulnerable in his expression. "I was going to tell you," he said. "I just didn't want it to feel like I was comparing you." My chest tightened. "Your wife was deaf?" I asked quietly. "Yes," he said, "Michelle." He stepped closer, but not too close, giving me space, always giving me space. "We were married for 12 years, he continued. "She lost her hearing when she was a teenager too, different reason, but she used to say the world was too loud anyway." The girls smiled at that. "She hated Dad's singing," Grace added proudly. "I still maintain I'm not that bad," Evan muttered. I felt something inside me unravel. All night I had been waiting for the moment he would realize I was too much work. And here he was, telling me he had already built a life with someone like me, loved someone like me, learned a whole language for love. "Why didn't you say something earlier?" I asked. Evan ran a hand through his hair. "Because I didn't want you to think I was only interested because you reminded me of her," he said honestly. "You don't. You're different. You're you." The way he said it didn't feel like a line. It felt like truth. Sophie stepped closer. "Dad stayed with Mom even when she got really sick," she signed. "Even when she couldn't do anything by herself, he didn't leave." Emma's voice got small. "He slept in the hospital chair every night." Grace looked up at me. "He doesn't leave." I swallowed hard. The tears came before I could stop them. For years I had told myself that men left because loving me was too hard. But maybe the truth was that I had never given anyone long enough to prove they would stay. "I'm sorry," I whispered. I don't know how to do this without expecting it to fall apart." Evan finally stepped close enough that I could feel his warmth. "I don't know how to do this perfectly either," he said. "I'm a single dad with 3 strong-willed daughters and a life that's messy and loud. I'm still learning how to breathe again after losing Michelle. But I do know this." He looked straight at me. "I'm not scared of loving someone who's deaf. I've done it before. I know what it means. And I also know it's worth it." The parking lot was quiet around us. 3 little girls stood between us like tiny bridges. Grace tugged my hand again. "Come back inside," she said. "Dad didn't even get dessert." Despite everything, I laughed. Sophie crossed her arms, serious. "You didn't even finish your chicken." Emma nodded. "And you looked happy before you got scared." That hit deeper than they probably understood. I had looked happy, I had felt happy, and I had almost thrown it away. I took a deep breath. "Okay," I said softly. All 3 girls gasped like I had just announced I was moving in tomorrow. "Okay." Evan repeated, hope flooding his face. "I'll come back inside," I said, "but only if you promise something." "Anything," he said immediately. "If this ever becomes too much for you," I said, my voice shaking, "you tell me. You don't slowly disappear. You don't make excuses. You're honest." Evan didn't hesitate. "Deal," he said, "but you promise something too." "What?" "You stop assuming I'm going to leave before I've had the chance to stay." The words settled heavy and real between us. That was the real risk, not being left, but letting someone try. "I'll try," I whispered. Grace cheered loudly. Emma clapped. Sophie looked deeply satisfied, like she had just successfully negotiated a treaty. Evan shook his head with a small smile. "You three need to get back inside before Madison's mom realizes you've escaped." "We were helping," Grace protested. "You were ambushing," he corrected. They ran back toward the restaurant door, turning once to wave at me. I stood there for a second longer. "You don't have to do this," Evan said quietly, "if you're not ready." I looked at him, really looked at him. This man who had learned sign language for love, who had raised 3 daughters who chased a stranger across a parking lot because they believed in their father's happiness. "I'm tired of running," I said. Then I walked back inside with him. Dinner was cold, but the waiter warmed it up. The second half of the date felt different, softer, more honest. We talked about Michelle, not as a ghost between us, but as someone who had shaped him. I listened as he told me how she used to rearrange furniture at midnight, and how she would sign dramatic stories to the girls at bedtime. "She made everything bigger than life," he said. "And you?" I asked. "I just try to keep up." When he walked me to my car later that night, the air felt calmer. "So did I. I'm not going to kiss you," he said suddenly. I blinked. "What?" He smiled. "Not tonight. I want to do this right, slow, real." For the first time in years, I didn't feel like someone was rushing past the hard parts to get to the easy ones. "Good," I said softly. "Slow sounds good." As I got into my car, I glanced toward the restaurant windows. 3 small faces were pressed against the glass, spying. I laughed. Driving home, my heart felt full and terrified at the same time. I had almost walked away from something that felt different, and I knew deep down that this was only the beginning. What I didn't know yet was how much those 3 little girls were about to change my life, or how much I was about to change theirs. 6 weeks later, I almost ran again. It didn't happen at a restaurant this time. It happened on a Tuesday night in Evan's living room while Grace was covered in glitter and Sophie was arguing about fractions. Somewhere between helping Emma with her spelling words and watching Evan burn garlic bread because he was trying to answer a work call, I realized something terrifying. I was falling in love, not just with him, with all of them, and that felt dangerous. At first things had been easy. Mini golf on Saturdays, pizza nights, homework chaos. I learned how Sophie liked her pencils lined up perfectly. I learned Emma cried quietly when she was overwhelmed. I learned Grace never walked anywhere when she could run. And somewhere along the way, they stopped being Evan's daughters. They became my girls too. That was the problem, because loving a man was one thing. Loving his children was something else entirely. It meant if things ended, I wouldn't just lose him, I would lose them, and I wasn't sure my heart could survive that. The breaking point came on a Saturday. Evan had planned a date night, just us. His sister Caroline was watching the girls. We were supposed to go to dinner and then an outdoor movie in the park. I wore a green dress he once said made my eyes look brighter. He noticed immediately when he picked me up. "You look beautiful," he said, and I could tell he meant it. Dinner was perfect. Soft lights, easy conversation. No panic in my chest. I started thinking maybe I was finally healing. Then his phone buzzed. He looked down at the screen and his whole expression changed. "Caroline's car broke down," he said. "She's on the side of the road with the girls." My stomach dropped. "I need to go get them." Of course he did. "They're scared," he added quickly. "I can take you home first or you can come with me." It was such a simple choice, but in my head it became something else. "You will always come second. The girls will always be first. You will always be the extra." "I'll just go home," I said, forcing a smile. "Are you sure?" he asked. I nodded. In the parking lot, he hugged me quickly and rushed to his truck, and I stood there alone. The old voice in my head came back loud and clear. This is what you were afraid of. You are not his priority. You never will be. By the time I got home, I had convinced myself it was only a matter of time before I got pushed aside completely. I ignored his texts that night. The next morning, I sent one message. I think we should slow down. I need space. He responded almost immediately. Can we talk? I didn't answer. For 3 days, I stayed silent. The girls texted me. Emma sent a picture of a card she made that said, "We miss you." Grace asked if I was mad at them. Sophie simply wrote, "Communication prevents unnecessary damage." Even in heartbreak, that girl was logical. I didn't reply. On the 4th night, there was a knock on my door. I knew it was him before I looked. When I opened it, Evan stood there holding a black and white notebook. "I know you asked for space," he said gently, "but I think you're running again." I stepped aside and let him in. We stood in my living room, the air thick with everything unsaid. "You left because I want to help my kids," he said carefully. "Didn't you?" "You didn't just go help your kids," I said, my voice shaking. "You left our date just like that." "Because they needed me." "I know," I said quickly. "I know they did, and that's the point. They will always need you more than I do." "And that scares you?" "Yes," I admitted. It felt like ripping off my own skin. I don't want to build a life where I'm always second. I've been second my whole life. Second to my disability. Second to convenience. Second to easier choices. Evan didn't argue. He just walked closer and held up the notebook. "This was Michelle S.," he said. I froze. "She used to write in it when she was scared, when she thought I'd leave, when she felt like too much." He opened it. On the page were words in neat handwriting. "He's going to get tired of repeating himself. He's going to want someone normal. No one stays forever." My breath caught. "She felt that," I whispered. "All the time," he said, "and I stayed every single time." He looked at me. "I'm not choosing between you and my daughters. That's not how love works. Loving them doesn't reduce my capacity to love you. It expands it." I felt tears burning. "But what if I'm not strong enough?" I asked. "You don't have to be strong alone," he said. "That's the point." Silence filled the room. "I didn't leave our date because you didn't matter," he continued. "I asked you to come with me because you do matter. You're the one who stepped back." That hit hard. He was right. I had stepped back, not because he failed me, but because I was afraid. "I'm scared of losing all of you," I whispered. "You will," he said honestly. "Someday. We all lose each other someday. That's life." My eyes widened. "But not because I walk away," he added quickly. "Not because you're too much." He stepped closer. "I'm scared too. I'm scared of my girls getting attached to you and then losing you because you decide it's safer to run. I'm scared of loving again and losing again." He took my hands. "But I'm choosing it anyway." That was the moment everything shifted. Love wasn't about avoiding pain. It was about deciding someone was worth the risk. I looked at him, really looked. This man had already survived the worst kind of loss, and he was still brave enough to try again. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I keep expecting you to leave." "I'm not going anywhere," he said softly, and for the first time I believed him a little more than I believed my fear. "I can't promise I won't panic again," I said. "Then I'll remind you why you don't need to," he replied. He pulled me into his arms and I let him. For once I didn't fight it. That night I texted the girls back. Emma replied with 20 heart emojis. Grace sent a voice note yelling, "I told you she'd come back." Sophie wrote, "Conflict resolution successful." I laughed through tears, but I didn't realize something bigger was coming. Something that would force me to decide once and for all whether I was brave enough to stay. And it would start with a camping trip that changed everything. The camping trip was supposed to be simple. One weekend at Pine Lake, tents, marshmallows, fresh air. Instead, it became the moment I stopped running for good. When Sophie invited me, she did it like she was announcing a school rule. "We're going camping next weekend," she signed. You're coming." I laughed at first. I thought it was cute. Then I realized she wasn't joking. Evan looked embarrassed. "You don't have to if you're not ready." Ready, that word used to control my whole life. Ready to trust. Ready to love. Ready to belong. If I waited until I felt fully ready, I would be alone forever, so I said yes. The drive to Pine Lake was loud and chaotic. The girls argued about music. Grace insisted on playing the same song 3 times. Emma kept handing me snacks. Sophie made a checklist for everything we packed. Somewhere in the noise, I felt something strange. Comfort. When we reached the campsite, the sun was setting over the water. The air smelled like pine and earth. The girls ran around like they owned the forest. Evan set up the tents while I helped Emma untangle sleeping bags. Grace tried to test the lake temperature and nearly fell in. Sophie supervised everyone like a tiny manager. That first night, we sat around the fire. The flames reflected in the girls' eyes. Evan told a dramatic story about a shoe-stealing lake monster that made Grace gasp and Emma cling to my arm. I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. Later, after the girls were asleep in their tent, Evan and I sat quietly by the dying fire. The night sky was clear, thousands of stars. "This is our thing," he said softly. "We've done this every year since Michelle died." My heart tightened. "I'm glad you're here," he added. I looked at the tents, at the soft glow from inside where 3 little girls were sleeping. "I'm glad I'm here too," I admitted, and I meant it. The next morning, Grace actually did fall into the lake trying to catch a fish with her bare hands. She came up soaked and furious, wearing mismatched shoes the rest of the day. We hiked. We swam. We made terrible pancakes on a camp stove. It was messy. It was loud. It was perfect. That night, the girls asked if I would sleep in their tent. "We want to tell you about Mom," Emma said. Inside that small tent, under a single flashlight, they told me everything. How she made birthday cakes from scratch even when she was tired. How she signed stories so dramatically they felt like movies. How she told them before she died that Dad would love again someday. "And when he does," Sophie said seriously, "we're supposed to give her a chance." Emma reached for my hand. "We think you're the one she meant." I couldn't speak for a moment. I had spent years believing I was too much, too complicated, too difficult to keep. And here were 3 little girls telling me I was exactly who they wanted. "I'm scared," I admitted quietly. "Dad says being scared means you care," Grace said. That simple, that honest. When they fell asleep, Emma still holding my hand, I lay there staring at the ceiling of the tent. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of being left. I was afraid of leaving. The next month, my lease was up. Rachel asked me what I was going to do. I didn't know how to answer. Then one Tuesday night, after tacos and homework and a very serious debate about whether stuffed animals needed their own blankets, Evan walked me into the hallway. "Move in with us," he said, just like that. No dramatic speech, no grand gesture, just truth. "You're already here most nights," he continued. The girls cleared space in the closet. Sophie made a spreadsheet. Of course she did. I felt the old panic rise up. Moving in meant permanence. It meant no easy exit. It meant fully choosing this life. "I'm terrified," I whispered. "So am I," he said honestly. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." That broke something open inside me. I thought about the restaurant, about almost walking away, about the parking lot and 3 small girls chasing me down. I thought about Michelle's journal, about the line he showed me. He stayed. Evan had stayed before, and he was asking me to stay now. "Yes," I said. He blinked. "Yes. Yes, I'll move in." I didn't expect what happened next. Grace screamed from the living room. She said yes. Sophie appeared holding a folder labeled, "Operation Lena Moves In." Emma started crying happy tears. They had been listening the entire time. That night I lay in Evan's bed for the first time, knowing it was going to be my bed too. The move happened slowly. Boxes, books, my coffee mugs mixing with theirs. The first morning I woke up officially living there. Grace crawled into our bed at 6 a.m. "Good," she said sleepily. "Now you can't escape." I laughed. Months passed. It wasn't always easy. There were hard days, loud days, days I felt overwhelmed. Days Evan and I argued about schedules and parenting styles and who forgot to buy milk, but I never ran, not once. One evening, almost a year after that first date, we went back to the same Italian restaurant, same booth, same candlelight. This time I wasn't planning my escape. I was wearing a simple ring on my finger. After dinner, Evan reached across the table. "Do you remember what you said here the first night?" he asked. I smiled softly. "I said I couldn't do this." "And now?" I looked at him, at the man who learned my language, at the father who let me love his daughters, at the family that chose me. "Now I know I can," I said. Outside, 3 familiar faces pressed against the restaurant window again, still spying, still loud, still mine. No one wants to date me, I used to believe. I was wrong. It just took a single dad and 3 fearless little girls to prove it.